Well, you're very welcome to another vlog. This time around, it's all about macro photography. The intricate beauty of an insect is not readily visible to the human eye. And that's why for me, this is a real ongoing journey of discovery and wonder. The compound eyes, the delicate hairs on an insect's legs, the complex patterns and textures of the wings. Now imagine capturing all of that detail, perfectly sharp, from head to thorax to abdomen, in a single photo taken in nature, in the wild. Sounds impossible, and it was impossible until recent advances in camera technology. So if you're new to the channel, my name is Jimmy MacDonald and I'm a nature photographer from Ireland, and on this YouTube channel I share that experience of being in nature and creating nature images. So let's jump in and start at the start. What is focus bracketing and what is focus stacking? Well, focus bracketing is taking multiple images of the same subject at different focal distances. Camera technology has advanced so much in recent years that the process of focus bracketing is automated and configurable. For example, the Nikon Z system, and I'll refer to the Z8 specifically in this video, allows us to set the number of images we would like to take, the focus step width, that's the amount by which the focus point will move from one shot to the next for each image in the series. The focus will always move from the initial focus point set by the photographer to the more distant point until all bracketed images in the series completes. We can also set the time interval between each shot in the series and ensure that the series is stored in a separate folder on the camera for ease of processing later. Now, focus stacking is simply the process of combining or blending the bracketed photos taken at different focal distances to create one image that features the sharpest points of each image in the series. Thereby, we should have optimum sharpness from the starting point of the bracketing series to the end point, revealing, in the case of insect photography, all of that glorious detail. Now, once we have the series of images, we can import into an application such as Lightroom, and we are ready to stack the set of images into one single image. Now, there's various applications that stack and stack well. You may have heard of Helican Focus and Zerene Stacker. You may also have heard Photoshop as focus stacking, but it's a very poor solution provided by Adobe. It has a problem stacking two simple images, let alone a series of 30. I've tried Helican, it's very good, but for me, and I believe I'm not alone in this camp, Zerene Stacker is the best image stacking application on the market. It's used in academia to stack for study and scientific purposes to microscopic magnifications, but also by professional and amateur photographers alike. In a recent email exchange with Rick Littlefield, who created Zerene Stacker, Rick told me he's very pleased that Zerene Stacker is of value to photographers who create fine art wildlife photos. Actually, the visual display of Zerene Stacker stacking the images has become a source of fascination for me. It's like a visual art piece that you may expect to see in a modern art gallery, the application slowly revealing the subject in the depth maps that it uses. And the short introductory piece at the start of this video illustrates that. It's almost hypnotic. I'll step through the process of stacking images using Zerene Stacker later in the video, but for now, let's concern ourselves with how to take focus bracketed images in the field. So let's set aside the camera and stacking technology for a moment. We have a sizable challenge in how we get an insect, such as a butterfly or a dragonfly, to stay perfectly still for the full length of taking the bracketed series. So let's explore two considerations. The first, the plant the insect has alighted on, that plant cannot move. So it goes without saying that as a prerequisite for this type of photography, we must have very little or no wind. We can use, let's say, a shield such as a reflector to reduce the wind, but in my experience, the flow of the wind gets around everything. Now, if we have a perfectly still plant, that does not necessarily mean the insect's going to be still. You may remember in my last video I mentioned that dragonflies have independent control and movement of each of the 4 wings. And a dragonfly, when alighted on a plant, frequently moves just 1 wing or 2, and it regularly wipes its large compound eyes to remove dust, moisture, etc. Insect flight and movement when alighted is largely restricted to temperatures in the range of 13 to 16 degrees. So the solution to this problem is to find a location where insects alight overnight and can be easily found, a meadow perhaps. Now plan to go out to that location, preferably after a cool night with low wind. So as you can see, the window of opportunity for this type of photography is a very limited window indeed, particularly here on the Emerald Isle where the weather is so changeable. Given that we're photographing in the summer months, we need to set that alarm clock very early, too early. Typically, we want to be on site an hour or so before sunrise to find the subject. Sunrise, that's about 5 a.m. here in Ireland at this time of year. So that's an overview of planning and weather conditions required before we go out to photograph. So let's have a look at the gear that I would typically take into the field for this type of photography. Now, my workhorse macro lens on the Z8 is unsurprisingly the Nikon Z105, which gives razor sharp results across the frame. It manages fine details and textures, has superb color fidelity and micro contrast. Now, one other optic that I have been bringing into the field is the Raynox 250, with the intention of getting closer again and stacking to resolve more details. It's a tiny little piece of optic, no weight in the bag. And when we add this to the 105, and it's simply a matter of clipping it onto the lens like that, and it says quite firmly there, you can get a feel for how easy it is just to pop on and pop off, much easier than extension tubes where you have to take the lens off the camera. So when stacking this attached to the 105, it gives us about 1.8 to 1 magnification. But the flip side of that is the depth of field is razor thin. We need to use a smaller step of 2 in focus shift shooting menu on the Z8, and that means more images and a longer bracketing time and increased risk of movement. The Raynox reduces the quality of the image. That's color sharpness, micro contrast. To be honest, I'd prefer to shoot at a low ISO and crop in with the 105 where I want more detail. Nonetheless, it's a good piece of glass to have in your bag. Now for tripods, I use a Benro Rhino. It's the lighter model, portable, easily maneuverable in long grass, for example. Now it should have a short central column, or preferably none at all. I made one for mine, but I lost it. So if you're out and about and you find a short homemade central column, get in touch. Now attached to the Benro is the ultra sturdy and heavy Novaflex Magic Ball head. One twist of the handle here and it just locks. It's going nowhere. It gives you great confidence when you're in the field. You'll notice I have a slide rail attached to it, and I'm using automated focus bracketing. But what I find is that once you get close to your subject, you don't have to move the tripod. Just to get a little bit nearer or a little bit further away, we just slide the camera back and forth, and it gives us a little bit of flexibility in the field. You know, additionally, once you have that tripod positioned at a respectable distance from the insect, we know the insect is comfortable with our presence, and we can get closer again simply by using the slide rail, by pushing the camera along the slide rail. And this saves us lifting the tripod to get closer. I've actually put an older Manfrotto rail underneath the Novaflex rail, which facilitates movement, not just back and forth, but left and right. So next up, I find a polarizer really does add to the image just a little bit of magic, particularly where there's water droplets in the morning, dew on the insect. And finally, a pair of waterproof pants are invaluable for working comfortably in the field. You could bring a small field stool for sitting if you wish. So before we go further, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the photographic approach. Now, this type of detailed photography lends itself to technical image making. However, my photographic approach is always to showcase the beauty of nature. And with this type of detailed macro, what I strive towards is a mix of good composition, giving the subject space in the frame, consideration to the background. It's gotta be, for me, an artistic approach first and foremost, but combining that with capturing the exquisite detail that bracketing facilitates. So let's translate how that artistic approach means with regard to bracketing and how close we need to be to the insect to both capture the detail, but also to give space to the subject within the frame. For a full frame sensor, 36mm by 24mm at 1:1, you could fill the frame with a subject that's about 36mm wide at the closest working distance. Now, a 4-spotted chaser dragonfly is at least 40 to 50mm long, with a wingspan of about 70mm. The Nikon Z105's closest working distance, that's the distance from the end of the lens to the subject, is about 14 centimeters. So if we worked at that distance from the chaser, we'd be cropping off the head or tail, and that really wouldn't make a great image. So I'd recommend a distance of at least twice that, but it depends on the subject matter. Additionally, I would rather shoot a more open aperture rather than closed down, and that has a significant impact on the background. With each stop we close down, the background becomes busier and detracts from the subject. Now, time is of the utmost importance. That's the time the bracketing takes. But with each stop we open up, we need to take more images and spend more time taking those images and risking subject movement in that time. So finding the balance is important between getting good bokeh with restricting focus bracketing time, and I find f5.6 or 6.3 is a good compromise. So the time it takes to capture the series of images is critical. Now, here's another few tips to help us reduce time. Use the largest focus step width possible, trial and error. But for the subject matter covered, butterflies and dragonflies, I find 4 is good. But the closer we get, the more need for 3 and possibly 2 at greater magnification. The different camera models have different terms for this. Canon's focus increment, Fuji is just step, and so forth. Now, using a CF express card over a standard SD card gives us faster write times from the camera buffer to the card. That's an important one. Turn on silent shooting. Obviously, the time between frames should be set to 0 delay. And finally, select the minimum amount of shots required. Again, this is trial, error, and experience in the field. Now, if you subscribe to the channel, you'll know I prefer to be out in nature rather than sitting here in the studio. So let's switch back to very early yesterday morning when that window of opportunity opened and we had very still weather conditions, perfect for focus bracketing in the field. Well, this is probably the most difficult part of focus bracketing, getting up early in the morning. I set the alarm last night for 3:30, so I'm down here now. The sun is up, but I'm in a shaded area, as you'll see from behind me. So I think I have about an hour and a half. Once that sun comes up over those trees, the day's photography is over. There's a number of specimens here. A beauty here behind me, very small dragonflies. And I've taken 2 approaches. I'm using the 105 Bear with about 100 shots. The background is very important. This dragonfly is on a spearwort that's fading, but I've left the flower out. But the stem of the spearwort is much more pleasing to the eye than the rushes. And many of the dragonflies here are on the tops of the rushes, on the little bush. I'm not sure what the name of it is. Oh, I can't believe it. There's a little crab spider. Oh, not moving at all. Right beside my hand where I'm holding the vlogging camera. And that's the advantage of just getting down and kneeling down in the grasses. You never know what you're going to see around you. But getting back to the photography here, so 105 bare focus step width 4, and I've given the dragonfly space in the frame, but I've also endeavoured to capture all of that beautiful detail. And I think I've done that. There's no wind this morning, so it's a perfect morning for focus bracketing. I've also used the Raynox 250. I've reduced the focus step width to 3 because the closer we get, the narrower the depth of field. My little friend here has woken up also. The temperature is about 17 or 18, so I don't think I'm going to be afforded much time down here. To conduct focus bracketing. I shoot a little bit of video of this fella, actually, with the Raynox 250 on. I'm going to shoot a little bit of video, and hopefully I'll capture a little bit of movement. Okay, there's a ringlet butterfly around here. He's a little bit of dew on him. The crab spider, too many options. And the thing is, each option needs time. We need to spend a good 20 minutes on each composition. Take our time with it. And that's another tip. Okay, so we'll move on. So as you'll see behind me, the sun has come up over the trees and the morning shoot is almost over. I found 2 beautiful ruddy darters facing each other across the top of a rush. I've shot a little bit of video. I've brought the laptop down and connected it here to the camera just to demonstrate using focus peaking to identify the nearest tip of the dragonfly's wing and then estimate. And it really is a matter of getting a feel for the focus width step, which is 4 in this instance. And it's very much an environmental shot, taking in the background, which has beautiful bokeh, has variations in the levels of light, dark where there's no sun on the dragonflies or the foreground, and just a little bit of warm light kissing the mid-ground there. 1 or 2 of the shots I've taken in portrait mode to include the sky and ensuring that the rush protruded into the sky. Just giving a perception of depth. But one of them's gone. So the sun has come up now, and this happens so quickly. Once that sun comes up, one of the dragonflies has flown, and that composition is now no longer, never to be taken again. It's the great thing about macro photography. Each composition has to be totally unique. And there's a thrill in finding little compositions like this. I'm delighted with this one. Probably my best composition this morning. The meadow is starting to come alive with butterflies. I'm going to pack up now. We're going to get back to the studio, load these into Lightroom, and let's work through the processing of them in Zerene Stacker. So back in the studio now, and I got a couple of images yesterday morning. I've processed one of them already. It's a simple image of a ruddy darter, and I've just displayed the finished image on the screen. So I think it's a good example to demonstrate how we stack the images using Zerene Stacker. So step one is importing the images into Lightroom, and then taking each series of images. So we'll start with this ruddy darter taken at ISO 500, f5.6 and 100 of a second. I've taken too many images in this series, so I just need a small selection. I've started with the first image being the first image I've identified a sharp area of the wing nearest me. And the final image then is the furthest point of the dragonfly, that is sharp. And therefore the background will be blurred, and it's quite a beautiful background here. A selection of different flowers, lovely mix, and nice light as well in the background. So it's a great example. I think it's my favorite image from yesterday morning. So what I tend to do is mark 1 star for the first image in the series and 1 star for the last image in the series of each series that I've shot. And then it's a matter of simply right-clicking and exporting to Zerene Stacker. Now, it takes a little time to export the images to Zerene Stacker. That might be my older iMac 2015. I actually love the screen of this computer. We've 29 images that are exporting now to Zerene Stacker. I'm just going to wait for Zerene Stacker to open up and we'll come back then. So Zerene Stacker has opened up now. The 29 images are listed on the left hand side in a window called input files. We have a window below that called output files, and that's where our final stacked image will be visible, ready to save. The interface is very simple and quite intuitive. We have the first image in the series displayed here. Now there's two methods to stack the images in Zerene Stacker. There's a Pmax and a Dmax. The DMAP is a depth map and the Pmap is a pyramidal algorithm. Now in summary, the difference is that the DMAP preserves the original color and contrast much better than the Pmax. The Pmax, however, is a little better at separating fine details such as hairs on insects. But in my experience, I prefer to use the DMAP. The finished image from a color perspective is just better. It's sharper, there seems to be more detail within the image. Now sometimes where there's overlapping wings and some anomalies, I run a Pmax as well. And then I can paint in parts of the Pmax image over the DMAP image for those areas. So let's kick off the DMAP stacking. We simply go to Stack, Align and Stack All DMAP, and we let Zerene Stacker do the hard work here. So it's saying it's 17 minutes or so remaining. So the stacking operation in Zerene Stacker is in 2 parts. The first part is stepping through each of the TIFF files and obviously forming information about the relationship between each of the images and the sharpness in each image. The second part is where a little bit of intuition on the photographer's part comes into play. So as you can see, we have set contrast threshold. Now effectively what this is a little game whereby we adjust the percentile in here to ensure that the background is black. And once we start seeing little green dots on the screen, we know we're going to get anomalies in the background. So we just need to get that balance right between black and dots of green and shapes in the background. And I think it's about there. I think I'm good there, but we don't want to go too far. So we don't want black appearing on the actual subject. So I'm at 82 percentile, and I find that between 80 and 90% tends to work. So I'm going to press OK here. And then we get that beautiful visual of the Zerene Stacker doing its job. And sometimes I just sit here and watch it as it transforms the image from total darkness. You'll see it's gone black now. And then it'll slowly reveal, you can see it here, it'll slowly reveal the dragonfly, little bit by little bit. So we're going to wait for this to finish, and then I'm going to have a look to see what anomalies are there, particularly around the edge of the dragonfly's wings. So as we can see, Zerene Stacker has finished the stack. So the next step is to very carefully, and I mean very carefully, go around particularly the edge of the subject here, every single part. And it's done a beautiful job here on the little droplets of water that we see here on the abdomen. And as we work our way around, and it's necessary to go every single droplet just to make sure there's a little bit of fuzziness here that we may fix. Going around the edge there now. That's all good. The head is perfect. The legs are very, very good. Nothing up here on the plant above. This is looking excellent now. And all of the droplets here are resolved. Actually, let's go in again. 200%. Okay. So we've come across a little bit of an anomaly here. Let me just scale in here to 400%. We can see just a little halo above each of the droplets. So what we're going to do is we're going to find just any of the other images in the stack here. I need to go into about 400% along here, but this looks like a good example to take the background from. So simply what we're going to do now is we're going to start the retouching, and it's edit, start retouching. And we have selected the image with the background, and we go to the target image, and we're just going to paint over. And so we'll paint over these little halos, revealing just the background there. I'll just continue on with that. And just gently do it. I'm keeping an eye that the background is the exact same background as in the target image. Now it looks pretty good to me. Okay. Now we're going to continue to do that around the whole edge of the insect. And that's really it. So the final step really is to edit, to commit the retouching. I'm going to zoom out again here to 27.35%. And then it's a matter of file and save output image. It's a TIFF 16 bits, and we just saved that image to the same folder we picked the series up from. So the final step then is to take it back into Lightroom. I tend to bring it into Photoshop. You'll notice here with this particular image, I find that the background is a little overpowering. So regards to the color fidelity of the insect, I don't touch it. I just add a little bit of sharpness. But with the background, I do a selective color and try to bring down those greens particularly. I find greens to be a very heavy, overpowering color, particularly in meadow settings. So I hope you found that interesting, the process of stacking the image in Zerene Stacker. I'm going to leave you with a few of the other images that I've taken recently. I hope you've enjoyed the vlog. So until next time, thanks very much for watching.